In the heart of the Crimson Wood, where ancient pines clawed at the sky and the air thrummed with secrets older than the mountains, a young bobcat named Kale prowled the undergrowth. His tawny fur, dappled with shadow, blended seamlessly with the forest floor, where ferns unfurled like emerald secrets and moss clung to stones like whispered promises. Kale was barely a year old, his eyes still wide with the reckless curiosity of youth, his paws too large for his lithe frame, betraying his inexperience. The forest was his kingdom, but it was a kingdom ruled by hunger and peril, where every rustle could herald death. Above him, the canopy swayed, a cathedral of green pierced by slivers of twilight. The air was heavy with the scent of pine sap and damp earth, but beneath it lingered a sharper note, a metallic tang that set Kale's whiskers twitching. He froze, ears swiveling, his heart a drumbeat against his ribs. Something was watching, something cunning, something ravenous. High on a gnarled branch, the vixen crouched, her amber eyes burning like twin embers in the gloam. Her name was Silvara, a creature of legend among the forest's denizens, her russet coat streaked with silver, as though the moon itself had kissed her fur. She was no ordinary fox. Her cunning was matched only by her ferocity, and her hunger was a fire that never dimmed. For days, she had tracked Kale, studying his clumsy bounds, his hesitant pauses, the way his tail flicked when he scented danger but couldn't place it. He was perfect prey, young, unwary, alone. Her jaws ached at the thought of his tender flesh, her stomach a hollow drum echoing with need. Silvara's tail twitched, a silent metronome counting down to the kill. She had waited for this moment, when the light was thin and the forest held its breath. Kale was foraging now, nosing through a patch of clover, oblivious to the death coiled above. Her muscles tensed, claws sinking into bark, ready to launch. One leap, one snap of her jaws, and the bobcat's life would be hers to claim. But then the forest shuddered. It was not a sound, not a sight, but a feeling, a ripple in the air, as though the world had inhaled sharply. Silvara's ears flattened, her instincts screaming. Kale's head snapped up, his green eyes wide, reflecting not just the fading light but something else, something unnatural. The ground beneath them pulsed, a low thrum that vibrated through their bones, and the trees groaned as if waking from a long slumber. Silvara's hunger was eclipsed by a primal unease, her gaze darting to the shadows that seemed to writhe beyond the clearing. From the underbrush a figure emerged, not beast, not man, but something between. It was cloaked in moss and vine, its form shifting like smoke, yet solid enough to cast a shadow that stretched too long across the forest floor. Its eyes were hollows of starlight, and when it spoke, its voice was the crackle of leaves and the rush of a river, layered with 1,000 whispers. "Silvara," it said, though its lips did not move. "Kale." The vixen's hackles rose, her snarl a low warning. Kale, trembling, backed against a tree, his claws unsheathed but useless against this specter. The figure raised a hand, or what might have been a hand, woven of bark and light, and the air grew thick, pressing against their lungs. "You are bound," it said, "by a thread older than blood, stronger than hunger. The Crimson Wood demands a choice." Silvara's mind raced. She knew the tales, whispers of the forest's heart, a spirit woven into the roots of the Crimson Wood, guardian of its ancient laws. But those were stories told to kits by firelight, not reality. Yet here it stood, its presence undeniable, its words carving into her soul. Kale, too, seemed transfixed, his fear mingling with a strange awe, as though he recognized something in the figure's gaze. "What choice?" Silvara spat, her voice sharp as a blade, though it trembled. She was no prey, no pawn of spirits. She was a hunter, and hunters bowed to none. The figure's eyes flared, and the forest seemed to lean closer, branches creaking, leaves rustling in a wind that did not blow. "The bobcat lives or the forest dies," it said. "One heart must still or all will fade. Choose now, vixen, or the choice will be made for you." Kale's gaze locked with Silvara's, and in that moment, she saw not just prey but a mirror of her own fear, her own defiance. The hunger in her gut warred with the weight of the spirit's words. To spare him was to starve, to defy her nature. To kill him was to risk the forest itself, her home, her lifeblood. The thrum in the ground grew louder, a heartbeat echoing her own, and she knew time was slipping away. But Silvara was no fool. She had survived winters that claimed stronger beasts, outwitted predators with sharper claws. There was always a way, a trick, a path through the thorns. Her eyes narrowed, glinting with a spark of cunning. "And if I choose neither?" she asked, her voice a low purr, testing the spirit's resolve. The figure's form flickered, as though her words had struck a nerve. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, and the ground beneath her paws seemed to shift, as if the forest itself were judging her. "Then you invite the unraveling," it said, and the word carried a weight that made her blood run cold. "The crimson wood will not abide in decision." Kale, silent until now, found his voice, a shaky growl. "Why me?" he demanded, his eyes blazing with a courage he didn't know he possessed. "What am I to this place?" The figure turned its starlit gaze upon him, and for a moment, the forest seemed to still, as though listening. "You are the spark," it said, "the one who carries the flame. Without you, the heart cannot beat." Silvara's tail lashed. The spark? The heart? Riddles wrapped in riddles, and yet the spirit's words stirred something deep within her. A memory, or perhaps a dream, of a time when the forest was more than a hunting ground, when it sang with a purpose she could not name. She glanced at Kale, his fur bristling, his eyes defiant yet pleading, and felt a pang she could not explain. The thrum grew louder, the ground trembling now, and Silvara knew the moment was upon her. To kill or to spare, to obey or to defy. Her jaws ached, her hunger a living thing, but the spirit's warning echoed louder still. The forest was her home, her life, her soul. Could she risk its end for a single meal? And then, as the tension coiled tighter, a new sound shattered the silence. A howl, distant but piercing, not of wolf or beast but of something older, something wrong. The spirit's form wavered, its eyes flaring with alarm. "The unraveling begins," it whispered, and before Silvara could speak, it dissolved into a swirl of leaves, leaving only the echo of its voice. "Choose or all is lost." The forest erupted into chaos. Branches snapped, the ground heaved, and from the shadows came a tide of darkness. Not night, but something alive, something that devoured light and sound. Silvara's instincts screamed to flee, but her eyes locked on Kale, still frozen, still alive. The choice was hers, and the forest was watching. The crimson wood convulsed, its ancient boughs trembling as though gripped by fever. The darkness that poured from the shadows was no mere absence of light. It writhed, a living tide of ink and malice, swallowing ferns and twisting vines into brittle husks. Silvara's fur stood on end, her amber eyes darting between the encroaching void and Kale, the young bobcat, whose panicked breaths clouded the air. The howl still echoed, a sound that clawed at the soul, neither beast nor wind but something older, something that made the forest's heartbeat falter. Silvara's mind churned, her cunning a blade honed by years of survival. The spirit's words, the unraveling, the spark, the heart, swirled like leaves in a storm, meaningless yet heavy with portent. She had no time for riddles, no patience for fates. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but the forest's agony was louder, a primal scream that drowned out her instincts. Kale, too, seemed caught in the same current, his green eyes wide with terror yet flickering with something else. Resolve, perhaps, or recognition. He took a step toward her, claws digging into the trembling earth, as if to speak, but the darkness surged closer, forcing them both to move. "Run!" Silvara snarled, her voice a whip crack, but it was not a command to flee alone. She lunged, not at Kale but past him, her lithe form weaving through the undergrowth as the black tide snapped at her heels. Kale, to his credit, did not hesitate. His paws pounded the earth, matching her stride, though his youth made him clumsy, his breath ragged. The forest was no longer a sanctuary but a labyrinth of betrayal, roots rising like snares, branches clawing at their fur. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of decay, as though the crimson wood itself were rotting from within. They ran, predator and prey bound by necessity, their paths converging toward a faint glow in the distance, a pulse of silver light that flickered like a dying star. Silvara's instincts screamed to veer away, to find a hollow or a burrow and wait out the storm, but the spirit's warning held her fast. The forest dies. The words were a chain, pulling her toward the light, toward the unknown. Kale, panting beside her, seemed driven by the same compulsion. His eyes locked on the glow as though it called his name. The darkness pursued, relentless, its edges fraying into tendrils that lashed like whips. One grazed Silvara's flank, and she yelped, the touch searing not her flesh but her spirit, a cold that burned deeper than any wound. Kale stumbled, a tendril coiling around his paw, and for a moment, Silvara's hunger flared. She could leave him, let the void claim him, and save herself. But the forest's pulse faltered again, a stutter in the earth, and she saw the truth in a flash. Kale was no mere prey. He was the spark, the key to the heart, whatever that meant. To abandon him was to doom them all. With a snarl, she doubled back, jaws snapping at the tendril. It recoiled, hissing like a snake, and Kale scrambled free, his eyes meeting hers in a fleeting moment of gratitude, or perhaps suspicion. There was no time to dwell. The glow was closer now, a clearing where the trees parted like a wound, revealing a pool of liquid silver, its surface rippling with light that did not reflect the sky. It was the heart of the crimson wood, Silvara knew, though she had never seen it. The tale spoke of a place where the forest's soul resided, a wellspring of life that bound every root, every leaf, every breath. But the heart was dying. Its light flickered, its edges frayed by the encroaching dark, and at its center stood a figure. Not the spirit from before, but something new, something wrong. It was a beast, yet not a beast, its form a patchwork of shadow and bone, its eyes twin voids that drank the light. It turned as they approached, and its gaze was a weight, pinning them in place. "You come too late," it said, its voice a chorus of shattered glass. "The heart weakens, and I am its end." Silvara's hackles rose, her tail lashing. "Who are you?" she demanded, though fear clawed at her throat. Kale, trembling beside her, growled low, his claws flexing, ready to fight or flee. "I am the unraveling," the creature said, its form shifting, now wolf, now stag, now something unnameable. "I am what comes when the balance breaks, when hunger outweighs harmony. You, vixen, chose indecision. You, bobcat, carry the spark but know not its fire. And so, the forest falls." Silvara's mind raced. Indecision, she had not chosen to kill or spare Kale, but she had run with him, fought for him. Was that not a choice? Her eyes darted to the pool, its light dimming, its surface rippling with desperation. Kale, too, seemed to sense its importance, his body tensing as he edged closer, drawn by an instinct he could not name. The creature laughed, a sound like breaking branches, and the darkness surged, tendrils lashing toward the heart. Silvara acted without thought, her body a blur as she leaped, intercepting a tendril with her jaws. It burned, a cold fire that seared her tongue, but she held fast, tearing it apart. Kale roared, a sound too large for his young frame, and charged the creature, claws slashing at its shifting form. The beast howled, its shape fracturing, but it struck back, a tendril catching Kale's shoulder, sending him sprawling. Silvara's heart pounded, her hunger forgotten, her cunning her only weapon. The creature was strong, but it was not the forest, it was an intruder, a parasite. The heart was the key, and Kale was its spark. She darted to his side, dragging him to his feet. "The pool," she hissed. "Get to the pool." Kale's eyes, clouded with pain, cleared with understanding. Together, they lunged for the heart, the darkness screaming behind them. The creature roared, its form collapsing into a storm of shadow, but Silvara was faster, her paws skimming the earth, Kale at her side. They reached the pool's edge, its light bathing them in a warmth that felt like life itself, and Kale, driven by some unspoken truth, plunged into the silver depths. The forest screamed. The light flared, blinding, and the darkness recoiled, shrieking as it burned. Silvara staggered, her vision swimming, but she saw Kale rise from the pool, his fur glowing with silver fire, his eyes blazing with a power that was not his own. The creature lunged, but Kale met it, claws and teeth a whirlwind, and where he struck, the darkness dissolved, the forest's pulse growing stronger with every blow. Silvara watched, awestruck, as the bobcat, her prey, became something more, a guardian, a flame. The creature fell, its form unraveling into ash, and the heart's light surged, flooding the clearing, the forest, the world. The darkness retreated, the trees sighed, and the ground stilled, its heartbeat steady once more. Kale turned to her, his glow fading, his eyes once again those of a young bobcat, weary but alive. Silvara's hunger returned, a dull ache, but she did not move. The forest was watching, and she had made her choice. Not to kill, not to spare, but to fight for something greater. The Crimson Wood was silent now, its secret safe, its heart beating strong. But Silvara knew the tales would grow, whispered by the wind, carried by the leaves. The vixen and the bobcat, bound by a choice that saved the forest. And as they stood, predator and prey, in the light of the heart, she wondered if the forest had chosen them both, long before they knew its name.